Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And we have a returning guest today who appeared back in February this year, which is 2021. And that was in episode 117. So Mattew Salthouse is Chief Executive Officer at Kainantu Resources, who are an Asia Pacific focused gold mining company with two highly prospective gold projects in a premier mining region. The high-grade Kainantu Gold District of PNG. Matt has a background in law and is here again to give us an update on what's been happening in PNG and what's been happening over the last 10 months since we last spoke on this podcast. So that's welcome, Matt, back to the podcast. How you doing, Matt?
Well, Matt, thank you. Hope you're well as well.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, and I appreciate you coming back on.
Thank you.
Obviously, people can know a little bit more about you if they go back to episode 117. But I just wanted to give us a quick snapshot, a very quick snapshot of yourself and of the company as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a mining executive. Originally trained as a lawyer, but really had an interest in pedigree in business all my professional working life, to be honest. Active in Asia Pacific, active in building precious metal mining projects, gold mines in Asia Pacific for a number of years, including with Oceanic Gold and Archipelago Resources, amongst others, and have a real passion for building and working in the mining sector in Asia. It's a really interesting place to operate and work in. And Kainantu, effectively, as I think we discussed last time, is really a concept taken into a business, taken into a company, which myself and others have looked to do for a number of years. That's from me, from a professional point of view, as well as building a company, that's sort of the next part of what we're looking to do. Take the learnings from previous endeavours in region and build a successful junior mining company around that.
Yeah. For listeners who are sort of new to the Kainantu Resources company and story, can you give us an update since we last spoke, which was probably 10 months ago now, and how the company has evolved over the course of this year and what you're looking to do?
Yeah, thanks. Look, when we spoke, I think we just listed and we had lots of ambitious plans ahead of us, both in terms of organic activities around our core assets in Kainantu and then probably some corporate initiatives that we were looking to pursue as well. So I think the immediate task sort of underlying all sort of startup listing companies is actually taking concept, taking an asset and creating a company around that, whether that's in terms of HR systems or procurement or financial controls and internal control frameworks and what have you. There's been quite a lot of work in the background to take concept, take early stage listed vehicle, make sure that all the money we raised is being well deployed in sense in terms of a well-managed, structured company. So there's been a lot of organisational development going on in the background. That's one thing, not necessarily the most dynamic thing to generate a share price return. And so the other side of the coin is to look, I guess, at what we've done from a value creation point of view, and that's focused, on our core assets, as I say, in Kainantu District, what we call KRL North and KRL South. So we've been actively pursuing field work and sort of focused the program, particularly in relation to KRL South and the Tirukaba area, where we could see some opportunity for early stage or an earlier stage definition of a resource around an epithermal mineralisation source there. So very much a focus in the last 10 months or so on that particular project and developing that towards delineation of drill targets, which ultimately then moves us towards defining resource in due course. So that's one of the value accretion options, activities that we've looked at. And the other side of the coin, if you will, is to look at some of the opportunities from a corporate point of view. We executed a deal for an interesting copper gold play called May River Project earlier in the year. So we're in the process of completing closing on that deal. And we've also looked at some other corporate opportunities as well, which potentially are accretive for shareholders going forward. So in summary, the last 10 months, very much a focus on bedding down a company structure and vehicle, but also working our assets, our projects, KRL North and KRL South, and looking at pursuing corporate initiatives, including in relation to the copper gold project at May River.
Yeah, obviously you have taken a number of significant steps, and you've obviously highlighted a few of those highlights that have happened over the course of this year. So I just want to, I suppose, dig deep into some of those, and obviously starting off with the May River acquisition. So I just wonder if you can tell the audience a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the May River project, it effectively brings together 3 concessions, 2 of them held by a company called Hard Rock and the third by a company called Naminco. And the project sits on trend on the Fiat Fault, immediately adjacent to Freda River copper gold project, one of the largest undeveloped copper projects in the world. It's in the Western Highlands of Papua New Guinea. It's about 200 kilometres to the west of our existing assets in Kainantu. The project that we've acquired, as I say, includes 5 prospects already identified by historic workings, sitting on a trend line, all with some 2 of them with some historic drilling on them as well, which looks pretty good and quite encouraging. Longer term, it's probably more of a porphyry style copper project, very much in line with the nearby Freda River project, but most likely as well there's evidence of some epithermal gold mineralisation as well. So it's a slightly more advanced project, if you will, compared to our Kainantu projects, in that there's been some historic workings done on it, so we've got the benefit of that, and we'll look to push that forward next year. The intention there really is to close the deals that we've got to acquire those projects. We've done some field survey work, which is one of the requirements for us to sort of effectively farm into one of the transactions as well, which looks particularly encouraging, in particular in relation to one of the prospects called Mountain Gate. And in the new year, we'll look to advance that, so put together a dedicated project team and hone in on that. The May River deal, I guess, from our point of view, it demonstrates that we can do interesting, accretive corporate transactions, and it also gives us exposure to the copper space, and clearly copper is a commodity in demand.
Certainly. Just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the FSC listing and capital management.
Yeah, sure. So we were listed on the Frankfurt exchange mid-year to give us added exposure to European markets, and I've been very active talking to a number of prospective investors there over the last 3 or 4 months, and doing some presentations on the company story there. So we've been promoting the story into Europe as well as into Canadian market. We've got some research, our first piece of research, which was published on us a couple of weeks ago by German Mining Network, and on the back of that, we've been pretty active in those markets and continue to pursue that. It's obviously another source of potential capital for the company going forward. Capital management, I think, look, we started the year for about $3.5 million US roughly in treasury. Some of that had already needed to be deployed to settle costs on listing the company and repayments of some working capital loans, which were incurred during the sort of post demerger pre-listing period. Other than that, we've been pretty tight and quite scrupulous in terms of managing our capital. We've got a reasonable body of capital at the moment. Having said that, we will look to look at options for raising a small amount of capital to support what we're doing in the field. I think ideally what we'd like to do in Kainantu South, KRL South, is delineate some drill targets and effectively move to a drill program in the course of next year, and clearly that will require some capital as well. So we will look to expand on the capital base of the company, if you like, which is probably to be expected of a company such as ours. It will obviously be deployed for an accretive project in terms of the drilling. I'd like to think that most of all the funds that we've had deployed this year have pretty much been deployed effectively. So yeah, we'll look at capital management going forward been tightly managed and well managed this year. We'll continue to apply those disciplines into next year. We continue to have strong support from the major shareholder block, which is the APEB group, and they remain committed to the story. They contributed $1.5 million last year to the capital raising, and all indications are that they will look to continue to support the company with further capital and support, whether it be in form of debt and or equity, into the future to support a drill program and some of the other projects that we're looking at, including in relation to May River.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange as opposed to, say, the AIM? And I suppose for those that are listening that are looking to potentially list over the next year or so, what was the reason why you swayed towards Frankfurt as opposed to AIM, or even other exchanges?
Look, that's a good question. I think one of the benefits of the Frankfurt listing is ease of listing. It's very easy to list on this Frankfurt exchange as a secondary repository or depository if you have a listing in another jurisdiction. So very quick process to list on the Frankfurt. There is obviously quite a lot of appetite and interest in European markets for gold commodity stocks. So that was another reason that attracted us to that. And I think also another benefit of the Frankfurt exchange is quite ease of access for other investors in Australia and Asia to go online through some of the platforms and buy directly into that market, as opposed to some of the other exchanges where it's a little more difficult. So probably three reasons why we looked and pursued the Frankfurt exchange.
Yeah. Obviously you mentioned about the North and South. So just wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about the Kainantu work program, and obviously distinguish North and South.
Yeah, sure. So the North is the project that sits right adjacent to K92's highly successful operations. So there we see mineralisation associated with K92's the Billamura Goldfield, which supports K92's operations, outcropping into that project. We've done a good deal of work there this year. Took us a little longer to access that tenement than it did the KRL South project, primarily due to some historic legacy issues with some prior holders, which involves having to work spend a bit of time working and socialising what we're doing with the community. We've got long-term buy-in support there, so we've been able to get into the field there and do a lot of sampling work there, which all looks very encouraging. We've identified a ring feature in KRL North, which we share with K92's tenements to the south of ours. So we think that looks highly prospective, and further work to be pursued there. And then KRL South, sort of 25 kilometres southwest from the K92 operations or KRL South. Still on the Kainantu transfer structure, the same transfer structure crossing through both our projects there. We focused very much around the centre of the tenements around the area called Tirakabe. Since I spoke with yourselves, more effort there to define and identify three core prospects: Avanofi East, Yarra Ridge, and Tebio, Kiora prospect as well. So three there. And then within those at Avanofi, we identified a 40 gram per tonne sample. So that looked really encouraging for us. We've done some more work there this year in terms of, in the second half of the year, doing some trenching work and excavation work there and taking further samples. So we think that, particularly around East Avanofi, we think that prospect looks the most likely to yield some drill targets for us. And we're pretty encouraged by what we're seeing there. And immediately then adjacent to the east of that is the Yarra Ridge prospect as well, which is looking very encouraging as well. And most likely the structures, the control structures underneath both East Avanofi and Yarra Ridge prospect are linked, which probably means a broader, broader area for further work into the future. So that's very much been a focus. One thing which we're looking to do, and we're quite encouraged by what we've seen, is engaged near term in looking at some geophysics work as well. So obviously we've been doing the geochem work and the modelling and what have you associated with that. Also looking to potentially mobilise to do some geophysics work near term at both KRL North and South. Probably will enable us to move at greater pace to do that work concurrent with some of the geochem work to, as I say, move towards a drilling program sooner rather than later. So that's pretty encouraging, and we'll probably look to put out some news flow around the geophysics in the next short while as well.
And also, how's the sort of relationships between you and government and community affairs, especially with the extension exploration rights?
Yeah, look, the relations with the government have been really supportive and positive through the year for us. As you say, earlier in the year, we were able to consolidate and expand our mining footprint in Kainantu and KRL North and KRL South, which gives us a great deal of certainty as to rights to explore and prospectively moving into rights to mine in the future. So that we've bedded down. We've generally found the government, albeit it's obviously had to grapple with COVID as all other institutions have all over the world, has been very cooperative and supportive of what we've had to do. And I think it's always it's worth noting, how transparent sometimes the regulatory system and the mining system can be in Papua New Guinea, because, for example, we had reason to peg some ground recently in Papua New Guinea. We put in an application at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8:30 in the morning, and by 11 o'clock the application had been updated and notified on the government porthole, which I must say, compared to a lot of other places in jurisdictions in this part of the world, it would take a lot longer for that to happen. So it is testament to the systems. They do operate in the background, so notwithstanding some of the noise and the political commentary that might be made from industry players or politicians, what have you, things keep moving and ticking along in the background in Papua New Guinea, and it's been a fairly good relationship for us to date.
Yeah, obviously you've been up to a lot of things. Is there any other sort of potential corporate initiatives that you're involved in or maybe pursuing?
Yeah, looking at a couple of other opportunities in region and in Papua New Guinea, which may see us potentially look at some sort of creative options to tie ourselves up with other players in the region. So we're working in the background on that at the moment. There's only so much we can really go into detail on that specifically at the moment for obvious reasons of confidentiality, not me looking to be evasive or anything of that nature. But all I would say is that there's some good opportunities for us to look at and for us to look to do some work on in the very near future. And I think that's a testament to probably the previous work done by APEV in country, backed on by KRL and our management and what have you, to be seen as credible players for people to introduce interesting opportunities for us of a corporate sort of nature, which we are looking at closely and hope to be able to again report more on that in the near future.
Yeah. When we last spoke, you mentioned that the company's taken a corporate philosophy that is evident in obviously the Main River acquisition. But you mentioned the company's also looking at other obviously corporate initiatives, and obviously we've covered some of those. Can you give us a little bit idea of what that means, and will you be looking at just PNG as a focus and other potential deal structures?
Look, I think one of the great things about having a listing a small cap, if you will, like Kainantu, with an interesting portfolio of assets, but quite a highly experienced board and management, means that we do have quite a good platform and vehicle to do different interesting things, provided they're always accretive and make logical sense from a shareholder point of view. I see obviously the conventional options to acquire assets such as what we're doing with May River, other opportunities for us to look at strategic collaboration and partnership with people, whether that's working on projects to help manage them, or sort of reverse farming sort of projects, which we think we can look at re-optimising how things might be done from the point of view of a smaller miner, where the project may not make as much sense for a larger miner. That's a second thing that we look to do, and potentially there's opportunities to potentially partner with, so some holders of projects, families in this part of the world, regional families in this part of the world who hold projects, have held them for a long time, but potentially there's been a generational shift there and they're looking to do something different with them and how they manage those projects. So there's sort of three different ways, if you will, to expand the portfolio and build a portfolio in KRL without necessarily diluting the company through ongoing and script deals or paper deals the whole time. And then that is a good segue into whether we're just saying PNG or more broadly, there are other opportunities in other parts of Asia which are known to us, and everybody in the management group has connections and contacts in Southeast Asia. So I would say that in time, when it makes logical sense without taking focus away from what we're doing in Papua New Guinea, but in time, I think we will look to expand more broadly regionally in this part of the world.
Yeah, I know that KRL planned and conducted a drill program for APEV Group, which led to a significant dual compliant deposit of a bulk commodity. What has the company learned from this, and how can KRL pivot from the success to further exploration success for some of their projects?
Yeah, so KRL originally, just to step back a little bit, of course, KRL was de-merged from APEV Group, and we listed. APEV has another bulk commodity asset in their portfolio which has been kept private. Notwithstanding that, we've worked in partnership with APEV to help them manage a successful drill program there in quite a remote part of Papua New Guinea, which was completed on budget, on time, and will define quite a material JORC compliant resource for that commodity in the very near future. So that was a successful outcome. And for us, there were a lot of learnings in terms of that and watching and observing what was done by APEV as part of that and working in with them, if you will. So I think that is a good deal of lessons that we can bring to a drilling program for Kainantu in due course. And I think it means that we're very well placed to move quite quickly and accelerate a drill program when that's ready to go, based on the learnings that we've had. So obviously, one of the big risk factors that junior exploration companies have is when they move from defining drilling targets into actually doing the drilling. It's a different type of work, if you will. And I'd like to think that the learnings that we've had through association with APEV will mean that we'll be able to transition that relatively smoothly. Touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood. How's the company handled, obviously, the COVID situation? Have you had much downtime, and have you managed that? And obviously, has it been quite a bit of an impact on the company?
COVID's been really interesting in PNG. When I look at it from where we were at the start of the year, COVID didn't really impact on the population in Papua New Guinea at a great rate at the start of the year, but certainly has since then. The initial impact for us was really getting samples out and processed. So getting samples out of country and then logistically offshore to Australia for processing, and then having the labs in Australia having appropriate staffing, given COVID restrictions in those countries to push things forward, probably slowed things down a little bit in terms of where we'd like to have got in terms of some data and being able to bring to market some of the outcomes that we were seeing in field. So that's kind of resolved now, and the samples are coming back, and we've got some methodology to deal with that. The next issue now is that COVID is impacting on the population at rate in Papua New Guinea. So obviously we have to put in place appropriate health and safety standards for our staff, which we do. But probably one of the silent kind of factors, if you will, is if we reflect back, certainly over the last 6 months, there's probably been quite a bit of staff downtime through, leave time to go and attend funerals and what have you. So notwithstanding, we've still managed to obviously push forward and get some outcomes Kainantu, and I think it probably is one of those things. When we look back in hindsight, we'll realise that probably there was a higher degree of lost time than would normally be the case, and most likely attribute that to COVID. So COVID has had an impact. Notwithstanding, we've pushed on and continue to take the business forward.
Yeah. PNG heads into an election next year. What would this mean for your business and I suppose also the mining industry within PNG?
Look, I think for the mining industry, it will obviously be a core focus, and I think the Prime Minister talked recently about potentially looking to have gold reserves in country and opportunities there for smelting. And so I expect that there'll be a lot of discussion around some of these activities and whether the mining regime is appropriate for delivery of returns into the population and a lot of the rhetoric that comes with an election cycle. Notwithstanding that, we'll continue to push our business forward and probably assume a relatively low target approach, but it will be relevant. The election cycle is something that people in Papua New Guinea do get quite passionate about and engaged and involved in. So we will take all notice of that and be a diligent observer of that. It will be interesting to see the outcome of the election, definitely.
Yeah, certainly. And perhaps you can come on next year, and once the elections are over, come on next year, and after obviously new power, or maybe a new power comes into play, just see how that has changed the company and the industry. So, and sort of concluding, what can we expect to see over the next 12 to 18 months from you guys?
Yeah, look, so short term, I think we'll obviously put some news flow through on KRL North and KRL South, plus the May River. I want to update the market on some of the more regional work that we see, which looks encouraging. We'll do that in the near term as well, and potentially we're looking at this geophysics. So that's some of the immediate focus for us. Then that moves us into early next year, where we'll be looking to have advanced on potentially some drilling targets, potentially look to advance on some corporate initiatives. And then, 18 months' time, I hope we're well advanced in moving to the nirvana, the immediate nirvana for us, which is defining our own resource and giving ourselves a defined resource and a valuation reference point that is a key focus for us. So some near-term activities, moving towards defining a drill program, then executing that drill program, leading towards a resource. Obviously, taking all of the conventional steps along that path, but that's where I'd like to be in 18 months' time. Yeah.
Well, it seems you've been very busy over the last 10 months since we last spoke, and so hopefully the next 10 months will be just as busy, or if not more busy. So obviously wish you well in all your endeavours. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, how can they go about doing that? And obviously social media channels that you may be on.
Yeah, please visit the website, and there's an email address there which they can use, and we check that obviously on a daily basis and respond to all the queries that come through.
Yeah, no worries. Well, wish you all the well in the future. Hopefully you can come on to the podcast sometime next year and give us another update, because obviously it seems you've done a lot in a short space of time. So obviously the next 10 months or even the next year, you're going to be doing a lot of activity, as you have done already. So yeah, like I said, wish you well with all of that. And audience, hope you enjoyed this episode. Appreciate your continued support. Appreciate you if you can share this episode amongst friends and family. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, appreciate again if you can share that. The more you share, the more people will see this episode and obviously listen to the podcast and hopefully subscribe, because it's obviously valuable information that we're giving out to the mining community. And I'm sure every episode that you listen to, you will learn something, even if it's not necessarily an area that you're involved in, whether you're from the finance industry, whether you're in operations or a particular discipline. I'm sure by listening to these episodes, you will pick up and learn something, and it's just going to broaden your knowledge, your mining knowledge. So when you do have conversations with other people from other disciplines, you're going to sound more credible because you're learning all the time. So appreciate your continued support, and until next time, happy mining.